Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. This is a 5-minute review of Hellboy from 2019. The film is directed by Neil Marshall, who's worked on a number of horror films, as well as being a producer on TV shows such as Lost in Space and Timeless. This is, of course, the third Hellboy movie after the first two that were directed by Guillermo del Toro, and those films starred Ron Perlman in the title role. This time, it's David Harbour, who's most recently been seen in things like Stranger Things. Other well-known names in the cast include Sasha, Milla Jovovich, and Daniel Day Kim. It's difficult to know where to start with this film because there's quite a lot to talk about, and not all of it is good, unfortunately. The cast are all really good, let's start there. They do their best with the material. The problem is the script is really, really bad. I also described this film, even though it's only 2 hours long, it's like as if you're being on a roller coaster and you can't really see what's going on. As soon as you come across one thrill, you're whipped away and you go on to something else. It's kind of like that. You're in one scene, something's happening, there's a sharp cut, you go back to something else, or you jump back in time and then you go back to the present. The film feels really, really long, which it shouldn't do because it's a almost non-stop action adventure with lots of fighting and explosions and all the rest of it. But the problem is, it's an absolute mess. All the elements were there to make it a good film when you look at the director and you look at the cast, and David Harbour is perfect in the role to take over from Ron Perlman. The problem is, it just doesn't work. There was some controversy at one point where the character that Daniel Day Kim was playing was originally given to a white actor. He gave up the role because he said it was more appropriate that an Asian actor should play it, and that got sorted, and then thought, right, the film should be great. The problem is, it really, really isn't. They tried to pack so many things into this film that it feels like you're getting whiplash again as you're pulled from one thing to the next. There's just too much in there. Another problem with the film is that it also recaps the origin of Hellboy, which is a retread, because if you're aware of the character and you came to see this film, you don't really need to know. Given that the nature of the story deals with Hellboy's potential destiny, there were ways to do it that were a lot smarter, that didn't require you to reshoot scenes that we've seen in the previous film, almost shot for shot, with the raising of him during World War II by Nazis on a remote island in Scotland. We've seen this, we know that. There were some other interesting wrinkles that they introduced that I wasn't aware of, so I'm going to have to go back to the comics to check if that is true, or if it's something they've made up for the film. There are some scenes in there that just felt like it would be a cool thing to do. At one point, Hellboy's fighting giants just because. He's gone to this place in England for another reason, and then once that's resolved, he then has to still fight the giants, which you didn't need at all. It could have all been a big fake-out. The destruction is ridiculous at points, and whole parts of London are just wiped out. And don't even get me started on Daniel Day Kim's accent. He's a great actor. I really enjoyed his work over the years, but it was atrocious. He really needed someone to say, go and do some homework and work on it. I think that is probably the main issue I had with all of the film. It felt like it was a caricature of the Hellboy universe. There wasn't enough time to spend with the characters to get to know them, to actually care about their fate. So when something happens to one of them, you just kind of shrug and move on. Because, well, who cares? Hundreds of other people have died in the film so far. Civilians are torn apart, buildings collapse and kill them. Whatever, that's just how the film is. I'm struggling to say that I enjoyed this film so much as it was an endurance test to see how quickly I could turn it off. But I made it right through to the end, including the mid-credits and end post-credit sequences, because they thought they were going to get a sequel and this would be another franchise that they would launch. But given that the budget for this film was $50 million, and so far it's only made $44 million, and it's already back on Netflix, shows that it was pretty much a failure. So I don't see that we're going to get any more of these in the future. The film is R-rated or 18 in the UK, which means they're allowed to use adult content as much as they want. Unfortunately, they take this as a license to swear whenever they feel like it, and not as if it's actually appropriate. So within the first 10 seconds of the film, there's a voiceover, someone swears just because they can. Given that Hellboy is fighting various demons and monsters and he chops them up. Yes, there's going to be gore, and that's okay. That's what I would expect. But it felt like it was just a child going into a sweet shop and just grabbing things because they could, not because they should do it. The villain in the film, played by Milla Jovovich, is fairly forgettable, although her origins were quite interesting. She does her best, but from reading between the lines around this film, it sounds like there were a lot of different cooks all trying to bring something to the film, and the end result was something that nobody was happy with. If you've seen the first two Hellboy films before by Guillermo del Toro, there really is no reason to see this film at all. It's a mess by comparison. It isn't clever. The jokes don't land. It feels too long despite it being an action film that's 2 hours. It really was an endurance test to see if I could actually get through to the end. There was too many ideas. There was too much in there. Script was terrible. It was just a bloated mess. So because of all of that, I'm going to give it 2 bags out of 5, and that's being really generous. So, have you seen Hellboy? If so, get in touch and let us know. You can come on to the Facebook group, contact us on Twitter. Don't forget to leave a comment below, and of course you can subscribe to this channel.